Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we talk about problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with a video.
I'm a 34-year-old widowed woman. During the last year of the pandemic, my husband died of COVID-19. We had 3 children. Financially, I can manage the whole house by myself, and the very little monetary help we get from my husband's workplace goes to our savings account. It has no fixed motives, but just for random extra expenditure. It's almost been a year of him passing, and ever since things have gotten really hard for me, both emotionally and due to the children's closeness to their grandparents, I need to maintain a relationship with them as well. Even though they have always been passive-aggressive towards me after the death of my husband, they have a claim over everything that belonged to them, which is legally incorrect. Everything after my husband belongs to me and our children. My mother-in-law, 59, is the more aggressive one than my father-in-law. He has somewhat changed after the death of his son and gotten really closer to 3 of our children, and he knows if I'm walking away, I will be taking my children with me too. So, due to his emotional attachment, he doesn't try it with me and is quite chill about it. So basically what happened was, according to my husband's will, the part of land and assets that he inherited from his grandfather and all other assets and cash will go to my name after his death. Look, we don't really have a lot, but it's more than enough, and raising 3 kids and yourself isn't easy. Half of the money will be gone alone to college, tuition, so on a long-term scale, the money and assets are not really that much for us alone. The things between my mother-in-law and father-in-law were never good. I don't know how she won over my father-in-law's heart, but as far as I know, they just got married and were together due to her getting knocked up with their first child. They had a total of 4 children. As the things between them weren't good, so my husband's grandpa gave his assets to his grandchildren instead. My father-in-law was a good-for-nothing person. He didn't have any good paying or stable job, or wasn't even a good father nor human being. So my mother-in-law's expectation of seeing a fortune was through my husband, and always had eyed on his portion of assets that he inherited, as well as the ones he created for himself. If she had been a nicer and kinder person, I would have considered, but she is none of that, and in fact, she never liked me or wanted me around. So then, let be it. The only reason they're kinder to my children still is connected to their own selfish desires. The other day, when I went to pick up my kids from their home, my mother-in-law stopped me on my way while returning to my car in front of her porch and said that she had to talk to me about something related to my husband. So she kept her words straight and said how she spent on raising his son and deserves half of the inheritance he left, making it clear how me taking everything was selfish. When I said no and refused to have any talk about this further, she sternly threatened about how she helped me with getting a job while I was one step away from living on the streets with my kids and losing everything, and she would tell my boss to fire me from my job and take me to court to completely ruin my life. So, when she mentioned about telling my boss to fire me, she wanted to show her closeness towards my boss and how good of friends they are for how easily she can get me fired. I met my boss for the first time during my husband's funeral, as she is a close family friend. She knew I had no job, and no way my in-laws would ever support me. So she hired me for her company as her secretary. I love my job, and I make sure to never give them a reason to fire me or leave them unimpressed. Now, her threatening to get me fired literally scared me because jobs aren't really easy to find or get. If I lose this one, I will be hit pretty bad. Everything just makes me stressed out. After hearing this, it really hurt me a lot. To not entertain her or anything, I just excused myself and asked her to talk about it to me through my lawyer. I don't know what will happen, but basically all I can do is pray and hope for the best. Hey again, everyone. I basically read all the comments and I didn't expect this to blow up like this. Thanks for all the upvotes. Well, after everything happened, I hit my lawyer up and asked him about the best thing to do. He said not to worry about it as I have a job contract that states I can't be fired from the job before 2 years unless I break the rules of the firm, and he suggested me to explain the whole situation to my boss and bring her to our side. And if my mother-in-law starts anything funny, we can charge her with verbal harassment, and threatening is considered as domestic violence. So we can get a restraining order and sue her in court. But honestly, I don't really go that way. I will respect the bond my husband had with them and be nice to them just as a tribute to him. And if they cause any harm to my children or me, I'll simply walk away from their life. Our absence will ruin their life itself. So, after meeting with my lawyer and finding a solution to it, the next day I went straight to my boss's cabin after fixing a meeting with her and told her about the situation. She looked worried and briefed me a bit about hers and my mother-in-law's friendship. They were just normal friends as their sons grew up together, and also told me about how my husband was just like her son, and they were great friends. But she lost her son in a school violence and always had kept in contact with my husband to feel close to her son. She also told me that I was offered the job because of my own capability and not because I was a family friend, and she also assured me that nothing other than unprofessional behavior during the office hours can take my job from me. So, I was all sure and secure about my job. My mother-in-law, after a few days, comes to my house demanding that I transfer the ownership of the house to her name. And I told her a firm no and asked her to only contact me through my lawyer, and she acted crazy and started calling me names and went outside shouting at me. The neighbors watched and came forward to help me, but she was long gone by then. She returned back in the evening, threatening to not leave my property until I signed some papers that she made, and it was all a complete disaster happening. I called the cops on her, and she got arrested for trespassing on my property. Later, my father-in-law went and bailed her out of jail, and now she has signed an agreement of never contacting me or my kids in any form or ever coming to my house, and she can't be present anywhere near 100 feet from me or my kids. If my father-in-law has any motives, then he would be put to jail too. He's really heartbroken that he won't get to see his grandchildren again for a while, but it's safer this way. It's better for me to stay away from their money-hungry ass for literally everyone. All our family members who are in good relation with me have blacklisted them, and same goes for our friends too. My boss came to know about it when my mother-in-law contacted her to ask her to fire me from my job, but she refused and has been avoiding her call since. That's really all for now. OP, the fact that you think that you are the a-hole itself speaks volumes about your self-esteem. No, you are NTA and never will be in the eyes of a sane person who is nice. Get them toxic in-laws out of yours and your kid's life. They deserve nothing, and there's a reason why they got nothing in the first place. Look, I see that you respect your husband a lot, but their presence will just make you more prone to toxic environments and ruin yours and your kids' mental health. Your safety and sanity is more important here, and your kids much better, and I don't care how nice your father-in-law is to them. They both are toxic and good for nothing, like seriously cutting them off before they pull more crazy-ass shit. So this kind of stuff also happens to people. Reddit really opens your eyes to the real world sometimes. I would have never imagined this kind of toxic crap goes in someone's life who has already seen enough. Look, you are NTA, and your mother-in-law and father-in-law, both of them are the biggest a-holes I have read about here. After everything, they haven't changed, so most probably they won't ever change. Drop those old people, girl. They have a special place for them back in hell.
Next story.
I'm a 22-year-old woman. I grew up poor with my single mom. I turned to drugs when I was 14 and was in and out of rehab until I was 18. It was an extremely hard time, and most of it was a blur. The one thing I know for sure was that my mom did nothing for me except fuel my addiction. She only sent me to rehab because it meant that she didn't have to look after me when I was gone. I was lucky enough to meet a guy who helped me to finally get sober and back on my feet. I lived with him for a bit while I got a job and saved up enough to finally rent a place of my own. It's a modest apartment, but I have a steady income, and I've even started doing an online course to get a degree. It's not an amazing situation, but considering the state I was in 4 years ago, it's the best I could have hoped for. Around a week ago, my mom turned up at my house. I hadn't spoken to her since I finished school and never planned to. Honestly, I'd half thought that she died over the years. Apparently, she got my address from some friends. She told me that she was homeless and needed a place to stay until she found somewhere else. It was clear that she was still using it. I asked her about it, and she made it very clear that she had no interest in getting clean. On top of all that, she tried to bribe me with some pills she had. And yeah, she knows that I'm clean. I told her that if I wanted her there, having an active addict in the same house with a recovering one is setting me up for failure. I am not prepared to go down that road again. It took me so long to fix my life. I'm not throwing it away for some woman who neglected me my whole childhood. She started screaming at me, saying I was selfish and stuck up, and that since she was my mom, I owed her my life. I shut the door on her and threatened to call the police when she didn't go. She eventually did, and I haven't heard from her since. I want to have a good relationship with her, but I just don't think I can possibly live with the very person who almost destroyed my life. And I'm not going to risk my recovery for her. So, AITA for refusing to let my homeless mother stay at my house? NTA, you had a rough childhood. That wasn't your fault. And you've pulled yourself up and gotten yourself together and are on a good path. I hope you know how proud of yourself you should be. Everything you said to her was true. The fact that she turned on you so quickly is proof that your mom is not thinking of your best interests. Honestly, she's not thinking of her own best interest either. She's lost in drugs, and that's not something you can fix. It's a sad situation, but keep moving forward and live your life to the best. Thank you. I really hope that she can get help the way I did so that she can get the life she deserves. Because she isn't a bad person. She's just been through a hell of a lot. I just wish things went a different way. NTA, first of all, good on you for having strong boundaries and identifying what a harmful situation that would be for you. OP, you should be very proud of that. Second, you do not owe her your life. In fact, you do not owe her anything. She chose to have you and give you a life no kid should have. She chose to use it, and now she's living with the consequences of that. Any decent parent would not put their child in danger, but she's more than willing to do that for her own sake. Live your life happily, knowing that you are more of a grown-up than your mother will ever be. I wish you all the best moving forward.
Next story.
Last summer, my dad, my uncle, 2 of my cousins, 15 and 12-year-old boys, and I, 16-year-old female, went to our family cabin for a week. My other cousin, Emma, 9, female, didn't come because she was busy or something, but my uncle said that he'd bring her this year. Well, I guess he's planning on taking Emma to the cabin over Memorial Day weekend. Just her, not her brothers. He called last week and asked my dad if we wanted to go. My dad's going, but I said no. I would have gone, except men in my family have this habit whenever there's kids around, they just expect me to watch or take care of them or entertain them. Then make it a thing when I don't want to. Last year, we were at the cabin and my grandpa's friend came over with his granddaughters that were like 4 and 5 or something. All the men were just hanging out and doing whatever and just expected me to play with them. I'm not even a kid person, but they were definitely brats. That was only a couple of hours, but still. When we came home, I was venting to my grandma about dealing with them, and she said, Oh, they're not that bad. They're cute little girls. Yesterday, my dad's family celebrated Mother's Day, and my grandma asked me why I wasn't going to the cabin with them. I was honest, and I said because I didn't feel like being stuck babysitting all weekend. That I knew exactly what would happen. My dad and uncle would go and do what they wanted, and I'd have to stay back and take care of Emma. My grandma said, "She's your cousin. You should want to spend time with her. You went to the cabin for a week with the boys. It means that you don't want to go with her just because she's younger." Thing is, my other cousins, her brothers, didn't need to be taken care of or watched. Besides, we're closer in age, so have more in common. AITA for not going? NTA. Tell them you'll go for $200 to babysit for the weekend. I hated babysitting at your age, and I still do at almost 40. Just because you're 16, it doesn't mean you should be expected to babysit without compensation. F that.
Next story.
So, I had a weird experience at a movie theater yesterday. I was going to the premiere of Doctor Strange in my town, which was at 3 p.m. It was the very first showing available. Anyway, to get to the story, a couple came in and brought their 1-year-old to the movie. I had a feeling this was going to go south, but I tried to be patient and understanding. However, after about 45-ish to an hour of screaming and crying that would start at every loud moment, I began to grow tired of it. The child was clearly scared and distressed, and nothing would console it. And after about the time limit that I listened to them not walking out and trying to console her in the theater, I leaned over and said, "Do you mind stepping out? This has become distracting." And let me tell you, the response I got was a bit shocking. The mother looked right at me and said, "Screw you. Why don't you just leave? It's just a baby." The father jumped in and said some colorful stuff too. But to be honest, I don't remember what he said exactly. But I tried to stay calm and explain it was distracting the whole theater. And it got to the point I felt the need to go get the manager. So I did. He spoke to them and then to me. He explained that they couldn't find a sitter, and this was the only time they could see it, and asked me to not confront them anymore. I told him that their lack of babysitter isn't really my issue, but that I can't even hear what's being said because the baby is screaming 5 feet from me. He then said that if it continues to be a problem, he'd deal with it. At that point, I don't know, if they felt embarrassed enough, but they left shortly after without any further intervention. But I'm asking to see if I was being an a-hole in this situation. I posted my experience on Facebook in a way I thought was lighthearted and trying to laugh about it. But a mother that was on my friends list said that she'd react the same way if I had said that to her kid. So, AITA? NTA. They shouldn't have brought a kid that young to a movie like that. The fact that they couldn't get a babysitter means they don't get to see it then. I can't believe a manager didn't think a screaming baby was that big a deal. You should have gotten a refund or tickets for the next showing. I'm not terribly surprised they cursed you out. People that are selfish and ignorant aren't going to be apologetic.